Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Multi-Voice Entertainment. I'm the Multi-Voice Reviewer. I have many voices, but one opinion. And I hope you guys had a really good Christmas because had I had a really swell time. And also, I hope some of you enjoyed my shout out to one of my dear friends because she really needed it badly because she's a little under the weather, but I hope she's doing okay. And if any of you jackasses decide to bully her, I'll be watching you. But for those, one thing that you guys wanted to know, some of you notice that I'm always into science fiction a lot. And according to my creativity, most of my stories and most of the things I create are more science fiction per se. So some of you kind of be wondering, what's my favorite science fiction franchise? Well, I love Star Trek. I love Doctor Who. And I'm also a big fan of Guardians of the Galaxy. And I'm also a huge fan of the Men in Black, which I already reviewed. But one thing I always love more is crossovers, because science fiction crossovers is one of my... I'm always a huge sucker of science fiction crossovers. And most of the Doctor Who stuff I got, believe it or not, some of them are kind of crossover in a way. Like, for instance, I wasn't really into the Big Finish audio dramas, even though I love audio dramas, and if I have a lot of money, I would have bought a whole collection of Big Finish Doctor Who audio dramas. But the only audio drama of Doctor Who I got is a CD of Doctor Who at a Time. Because the reason why I wanted this is because those are the two icon doctors in Doctor Who history. Tom Baker and David Tennant. And it's not often that you get a Doctor Who episode where Tom Baker teams up with David Tennant. And this was a really good one. Because David Tennant and Tom Baker are the most iconic doctors in history. And that's why, and that's the reason why I decided to do that one Doctor Who event where I'm doing the voice of Tom Baker and David Tennant, because I do a really good Tom Baker, and I also, a really good David Tennant, and of course I do a good Tom Baker. Would you like a jelly baby? They're quite good. And of course, a friend of mine gave me this last Christmas, and I thought it was a really neat one. And it is Doctor Who, The Wizard of Oz. Now, I know some of you are telling me that, some of you will probably remind me that I was working on a Doctor Who episode where it's not my doctor, but somebody else's doctor crossing over to the land of Oz, the Doctor of Oz. Well, I was working on it when I was in the Odyssey group. But ever since I got kicked out of the Odyssey group, I have no intention on picking up where I left off on that script. And noticing this, it feels like somebody just beat me to it. Although the difference between my version of the Doctor of Oz and this is Jodie Whittaker's doctor in the Julie Garland version of The Wizard of Oz. And as you can see, Missy is dressing like the Wicked Witch of the West. Imagine Missy going like, I'll get you, my little pretty, and your little dog, too. But one thing that's really different is they made a Tin Man become one of the Cybermen. The Scarecrow is one of the Scarecrows in David Tennant era. And one of the Cat People as the Cowardly Lion. So, this is more of take place during the time when the Wizard of Oz hit blockbusters way back in the 40s. And this is what this book is about. even though my version of the Doctor of Oz, I was making it more based from the original novel by L. Frank Baum and not the Julie Garland movie. But one crossover that I do love, like I said, I love Star Trek and Doctor Who. And for those of you who are wondering what's my favorite Star Trek, my favorite Star Trek series, I love Deep Space Nine because it's more dramatic and it has more alien characters than human characters. Because that's one thing I've been noticing about Star Trek. They only have like one or two or three alien characters, but most of the situation are mostly the hero characters. And I also I do it. I mean, there are some new series of Star Trek I haven't watched, but I have watched that other one, that CGI made one. And what's my favorite captain? I would say Captain Picard because he's more focused on his mission and less of the women because Captain Kirk is a womanizer. So it's pretty obvious. And my favorite characters on Star Trek is, of course, Spock, the Vulcan, Data, the android, and Seven of Nine, the former Borg. And yes, for those of you who are going to be asking me, yes, the idea of my companion, my cyber companion Hannah on my Doctor Who series, I based it from Seven of Nine, because Seven of Nine was my third favorite Star Trek character, so therefore I decided to make my own Seven of Nine like companion for my Doctor Who series. But make something different about her than Seven of Nine, like her emotion enhancers was destroyed, so her emotion came back. She gets worried that her cyber side starts taking over. And also, I made her into a gamer because my TARDIS has an arcade room. So she starts playing cyberpunk-like video games. And for Doctor Who, for those of you who are going to be asking me, my favorite is, of course, Tom Baker, David Tennant, Matt Smith, Peter Capaldi's okay. And my favorite companion, I had a huge crush on Rose Tyler until I found Jenna Coleman. I have a soft spot for Jenna Coleman. She's been my favorite companion. She's my favorite actress, and I love her character as Clara, the Impossible Girl. And for those of you going to be asking me, I do like Jodie Whittaker as the Doctor. Some of the episodes needs a little work, and I'm very surprised that Jodie Whittaker regenerated back into David Tennant, known as the 14th Doctor, which I was like, what the hell was that about? But it started to realize that somehow, I guess David Tennant's mission's not over yet because he's reuniting with Donna Noble, one of the companions that I do find pretty interesting because she's funny. And also, sooner or later, David Tennant's going to regenerate into this new Doctor. But the question is, I mean, I do like the outfit of this Doctor, but I'm just wondering, I mean, I know the actor, this new actor who is black and gay in real life, I don't know if he's going to be playing the Doctor either gay or what. I don't know how his performance is going to be or what. I mean, I know some people complain about some characters being gay, but I don't have a problem with that because, well, I grew up, my brother happily gay with his husband, and my sister being gay with her new girlfriend. So, and I'm just a high functioning autistic. So, I'm a heterosexual who's autistic. But anyway, back to the series. What I'm going to be reviewing is my Christmas presents, and that is the graphic novel of a crossover of two of my favorite franchises that I did mention, Star Trek and Doctor Who. Now, unlike this one's involving Matt Smith Doctor, which I have one little gripe about it. I mean, Why does it have to be Matt Smith? It should be David Tennant's doctor instead of Matt Smith's doctor. But I think it's got something to do because I remember when I went to my aunt's house, BBC America was doing the back-to-back sci-fi marathon. They were showing Star Trek Next Generation and Matt Smith Doctor Who. So that's the reason why IDW, who owned both Doctor Who and Star Trek, decided to make this crossover. Without further ado, let's dig into Star Trek Next Generation Doctor Who Assimilation Square and see how. Oh, bear in mind, I'm going to review through the whole comic, so there will be some spoilers ahead, folks. So let's dig into the comic, shall we? And we're going to start off with Volume 1. In Volume 1, it started out like this. Started out in this planet owned by these aliens who are bald, like that bald lady on Star Trek The Motion Picture, the worst Star Trek movie ever made. Which I have a sneaking suspicion that one might be the origin of the Borg. But anyway, those peaceful people going through their happy life until something started showing up into their planet. Their city's been bombed and fired, and out comes the Borg and the Cybermen. And some of the aliens teleported themselves while they were trying to keep the Borg busy and the Cybermen. Now, here's the thing about the Borg and the Cybermen. Now, the Borg, they are both organic and biotic beings who wants to turn the entire galaxy into the same species, because they believe that the galaxy would be so much better if everybody are the same species. Everybody would become the Borg. That's why they always say resistance is futile. They'll shoot you with their probe, a little bionic little probe device goes into your bloodstream, starts growing wires into your body, and then you become a drone for the Borg. But one thing about the Borg, they're all controlled by the Queen Borg, who tells them what to do. So they're pretty much like bees, in a way. And they think the galaxy will be a better place if everybody will be the Borg. No arguments, no racism, nothing. Just a group of human machines controlled by a single mind. And that's what the Borg is. Cybermen, on the other hand, is different. They're not like the Borg, because there used to be a planet where it's completely humanoid. I mean, a planet that is similar to us, Earth, except it was moving far, far away to the sun, so pretty much their planet was being frozen. So the only way the people from that planet survive, they decided to upgrade their bodies, replace their organism with cybernetic husk, cybernetic armor, and they pretty much sacrificed their emotions to better themselves by becoming Cybermen. And the Cybermen are controlled by the Cybermen controller, which I'm going to get to him soon. But they don't want to turn anybody into Cybermen unless they want to invade certain planets. So, pretty much, if somebody wants to be with the Cybermen, they would turn them into Cybermen. But, like the same, they're not like the Borg. Very different. Anyway, back to the story. Some of the aliens tried to make their escape, and they contacted the Federations, and much to their surprise, some of the backup from the Federations, I mean, if they arrive, it's going to be too late, and then they get a message from one of the Cybermen saying resistance is futile. And, of course, some of the Borg and Cybermen showed up, and here's what you see. The Cybermen and the Borg, and the Cybermen saying, resistance is futile. Wow. So, pretty much, some of those people from that planet made their escape, while the Cybermen and the Borg starts assimilating, or upgrading, their species. Meanwhile, in ancient Egypt, Matt Smith, Dr. Amy Pond, and also Rory are riding their chariot to attract the guards until they were able to get... they're trying to outrace the guards and everything until they finally got to their king, and one of its second in command turns out he was an alien. So the second in command turns out to be some kind of evil alien who wanted to take over Egypt. I don't know about you guys, but that kind of reminds me of something. But anyway, back to the show. Back to the story. The doctor grabbed a green crystal and he showed it right in front of the alien, and the alien gets sucked into the crystal like a genie in a bottle. And then when Rory picked up the crystal and handed it to the doctor, he grabbed the crystal and all of a sudden something happened. He keeps having visions, something that he remembers before. And then he tried to get his TARDIS somewhere, but his TARDIS ended up somewhere else. They ended up in the 1940s. So, Rory and Amy dressed up in the 1940s clothing. The doctor starts looking about. They went to a nightclub, and there is Commander Riker, Data, and Beverly Crusher. Next scene, they were going back a little further before the doctor showed up, where Jodie is doing some updates for Data's mind. And, of course, Riker and the captain starts talking. Captain Picard, my favorite starship captain. They're just going through their ways, and they went to another planet, and they were making peace to a certain alien, which he turns out he's a fish alien. And they come across this Federation captain, which I gotta say, the design of that guy, he kind of looks like Cheech Marin. How's it going, man? I'm Captain Marin, man. And, of course, the girl with the goggles, which I don't know what's with the goggles. But, anyway, they finally made their peace to the sea with the sea people, and everything is going smoothly. And they were giving the tour around their area in that planet, until all of a sudden the gas from the underwater world got busted. Some of them drowned, but Data, him being an android, he doesn't rust or anything. So he found Riker and got him out of the water, saved his life. So they pretty much fixed everything, and they're pretty much beyond their way. So they decided to go to a hologram, and that's where it ended up in the 40s, and that's when Rory and the doctor and Amy met them, and that's when the doctor started teasing on Data. It would be pretty interesting if he starts showing androids some respect, for crying out loud, because it would be a lot more interesting if he can knock it off! There's the only gripe I do have in this comic, making the doctor act like a real jerk towards Data. If he keeps this up, I think I figured out his real name. It's Dr. Mickhead. And if it isn't, well, I'm thinking of something that rhymes with it. But anyway, Riker thinks that there is some kind of glitch going on to the hologram, so he told the hologram room to turn off the end game. And it turns out that the TARDIS, Doctor, Rory, and Amy is still there, so they figured out they're not holograms. Ask Worf to guide them out of the room. And of course, the Doctor recognized Worf as a Klingon and told him that we are amongst friends. And of course, Amy asking him how does he know about Klingons, but when he ended up in their universe, he didn't even know the word Klingon before. Oh, so he's a Star Wars fan, I guess. Or a Stargate fan. But anyway, first time that and of course, unlike every single movie where every time the Doctor meets someone and he says, I'm the Doctor, and everybody says Doctor Who, this one is really different. I mean, the Doctor meets the Captain, Jean-Luc Picard, and Captain says, Doctor, Doctor of. And he says, just a doctor. Very well then, Doctor. A pleasure to meet you. And of course, everybody starts talking about Doctor talking about how he's an alien, time travel, while the Picard tells him that they're from the Starship Enterprise Federation future. And then all of a sudden they got an interruption through the space, and this will be like pants being darkened moment, where you see a gathering of Borg ships and Cyberman ships. And of course, you see the Cyberman controller, who now controls the Cybermen. And that's the Cyberman controller right there. You see, the Borg is controlled by a single mind of the Borg Queen, while the Cybermen are controlled by the Cyberman controller. He's the one in charge. So, they decide to get out of there, get out from the danger zones. I went to the danger zone. But anyway, out of the territory, and they were trying to look up some information of the Cybermen. It turns out the Enterprise had some information about the Cybermen, and then they saw a picture of Tom Baker's Doctor, and that's when the Doctor went like, ah! And now we went back to the classic Star Trek, where Captain James D. Kirk, and of course Commander Spock, one of my favorite characters. Jim Bowles, get it, Jim. I'm a doctor. And of course Montgomery Scott, the chief engineer. Captain Kirk and his crew meets a group of people, seeing that everything is going A-OK, but there's a certain disturbance going on. And as they went to one of the doors, it went completely locked. All of a sudden it opened, and out comes one of the icons, Tom Baker. You see, this is why I think that David Tennant should be in this crossover instead of Matt Smith, because Tom Baker and David Tennant are the icons of Doctor Who. But instead of David Tennant, they had to put Matt Smith in this. Jeez. But anyway, Tom Baker meets Captain Kirk and the others, and as usual, offers them a jelly baby. And Spock looking at them, going like, fascinating, and starts knowing what certain ingredients they are. I mean, it's like Bones saying, damn it, Jim, you eat that crap, but every time I try to make some sweets, you say I'll rot your teeth. That's why it's illogic. You pointy-ears hobgoblin. And of course, they finally realize that there is a bunch of people who's just standing there with their heads tilting. I think it's because they were listening to that one song. What is love, love, baby, don't hurt me no more. And out comes the classic version of the Cyberman right here. Now, Captain Kirk trying to do the old-fashioned, he shot his laser on the Cyberman as he burst through the wall, but no effect. The Cyberman just grabbed the gun and bent it, while Captain Kirk starts struggling with one of the Cybermen. Spock and Scotty fire their lasers at the Cybermen, but no effect. And as usual, you see Captain Kirk doing the same fight scene, just like him battling against the Gorn, until the Cyberman started throttling him and tossed him to the wall. And then Tom Baker grabs the communicator and scans the gold side of the communicator, while Kirk doing a kung fu kick at him. The doctor made a go dust out of the communicator and tossed it right in front of the Cyberman, while Spock fired his laser at it. And he was down for the count. And now everybody is cured, the Cybermen are dealt with, and as usual, Tom Baker Doctor didn't stick around to be thanked by Captain Kirk and the others, so he went off back to his TARDIS. And while everything was all shipshape, all of a sudden, their computer turned red for a second. And now back to the modern era, where somehow the Doctor remembered all that. Still thinking that it should be Tom Baker. David Tennant in this. But it's my meaningless fanboy gripes. And then all of a sudden he decided to introduce another character, Whoopi Goldberg's character, Guinan. Now, her character is a mystery. When she senses some danger it's going to happen, she just warns, but doesn't know the full detail. She doesn't know about the characters, she doesn't know their future or their alternate endings, she just senses some danger. That's it. Heck, even Diana Troy, who is part Betazoid, who can read people's minds, she can sense a great history about him, but also sadness. But also Guinan, after talking to the Doctor, all of a sudden tells Captain Picard that he can trust the Doctor. Does anybody remember on some of the episode, The Doctor Lies? But anyway, back to the meeting. Turns out... back to the meeting, they decided to go to another planet, and all of a sudden they start seeing a huge battlefield going on. Turns out that the planet was under attack by the Cybermen and the Borg. They're pretty much wiping most of them out, and they see a Borg being destroyed, and of course a beat-up Cyberman as well. But of course the Doctor found one of the crystals from that planet, and they had to beam back. And they analyzed the body of the Borg and the Cyberman, and pretty much figured out. Now, as they were trying to scan the body, they decided to find the crystal where it had all the information. It turns out that there was a fight between the Cyberman and the Borg. Turns out that they started to rebel. And they even came to a certain conclusion that that there are some Borgs who escaped from the Cybermen, wanted to make a truce to, the whole enemy is my friend thing. Now, the Doctor thinks that's a good idea, but Captain Picard, he wants the Borg to be eliminated by the Cybermen, because he thinks the Borg are better off being destroyed by the Cybermen. But there is a certain consequences for something like that to happen. And even the Doctor tries to talk the Captain to change his mind didn't made up. And that's pretty much it for this book here. And of course a couple of pages, which is pretty much from the cover. Some of them looks pretty cool, some of them is an homage to the old comics, and some of the old crisscross artwork. But, so, let's dig into Volume 2, shall we? Now, in Volume 2, the Doctor tries his best to convince Captain Picard, but Captain Picard, he just really has a huge hatred towards the Borg. And even the Doctor decided to have a bit of a talk in in the Captain's office, but he puts his foot down. Even Guinan shows up and Guinan starts telling the Doctor why the Captain is acting like that towards the Borg, because long time ago, from the episode Best of Two Worlds, the one I have on DVD, where Captain Jean-Luc Picard gets kidnapped by the Borg and becomes Locutus, and And of course, in Battle War 359, all the uh, all the other Starfleets trying to stop the Borg, but they kept killing them one by one until Data and Wolf was able to go to the Borg ship, grab Locutus, and turn him back into Picard. So that's the reason why Picard don't even want to hear about helping the Borg. But at the same time, Rory and Amy are really impressed over the medical office because there's a bit of a character development because Rory is a medical nurse and he's so impressed with the high tech medical stuff that they have in the future. So Deanna Troi and Beverly starts talking to Rory and Amy, and of course the doctor told his companions that the captain wouldn't change his mind, but there's one certain person who would. Amy Pond. After all, Captain Picard does have a thing for beautiful redheads. I mean, heck, Captain Picard had a huge crush on Beverly Crusher, and young, lovely Amelia Pond would help him change his mind. And so much for that Star Trek Insurrection, another worse Star Trek movie, where that one woman starts hitting on Picard, and Picard says, "I might warn you, I always been attracted to older women." I guess that's not canon, I guess. Because if he is attracted to older women, Amy should be in her 40s or something. Or maybe in her 60s. But anyway, back to the thing. Amelia starts talking to Picard, and she knows, and even she talks about her life meeting the Doctor and the journey she goes through. It pretty much makes the Doctor wants to change his mind. And one thing that the Doctor did, he invite the Doctor into the TARDIS. And when he sees that it's bigger on the inside, Picard was like, "Remarkable." Well, at least he doesn't say it's bigger on the inside. And then the Doctor shows Picard the world. He showed him the future. Like, what would happen if the Cybermen are done with the Borg? What's the next planet they're going to go to? The Cybermen will attack the Klingons. Don't ask me what it means. I don't know. I don't speak Klingon. And of course, the Cybermen start attacking the Vulcan, the Jadoon, and the I think these are Ferengis. I think, or maybe the Predator. And of course, showing them the future of the Enterprise, where the Cybermen starts forcing the Federation to surrender to the Cybermen and turning them into Cybermen. So now that convinced Picard and make a treaty. So they talk to one of the head Borgs who wants to make a peace treaty, which they call him the Conduit. And Worf doesn't trust the Borg, so the Borg removed all the parts that remain lethal in case he wants to take over. And all of a sudden, Real Riker remembered the Conduit as Captain Bertram. Captain Bertram from the starship Potemkin. So pretty much this Borg was an old friend to Riker. So they welcomed the Borg into the Starfleet ship and figured out a strategy in order to stop the Cybermen. And they also went to that one sea planet where they contact the girl with the goggles and one of the underwater creatures to find some gold dust in order to defeat them. Even the Doctor himself starts noticing some details about the fish alien. So they were able to find it, and they went back to the hologram room where the TARDIS is at. And when Riker and Captain Picard was about ready to go with the Doctor thinks it's a good idea if you two stay, and they both accept it. "I'm coming with you, Dag." "No, you're not, Sedge." "Fair enough." And the only reason why is because they need to get some information in the past in Battle Warp 359. And they went into the so Rory and Amy and the Doctor went into the past, and that's where they met Locutus, aka Captain Picard, when he was a Borg. And they looked at the Borg, and they noticed that the Borg ignores them, because when you're in the Borg ship, they're just human machines. They'll ignore you until they consider you a threat. So they found the information they need on their ship and made their way out of here. I think it was a good idea to not bring Picard back, because, I mean, Picard would probably look at his Borg self and probably do something about it. So now they went back into the time where Picard and Riker is at, found the information they were looking for, and made it very useful. And of course, Riker asked Dr. Crusher if there is a way that he can turn the conduit back into Bertram, but he's long gone. And of course, Worf hired 3 unknown officers, which most people would probably call them as the red shirts, the characters who gets killed in battle. So they're pretty much expendables. Even Worf wanted to give the Doctor a gun, but the Doctor, as usual, refused not to use the gun. But he welcomes Worf and Data into the ship, into the TARDIS, and even Worf and Data was intrigued. Even Data just pretty much catch on how it is all possible. Anyway, they finally got into the Borg Cybermen ship, and they were going through the whole thing, figuring out ways to find find the Cybermen controller. And there are these Borg and Cybermen troops coming up, firing their lasers because they found him as a threat. Worf firing his laser, and he told Rory and Amy that he should take their phasers with them for safekeeping. So, at first they refused, but they're not with the Doctor, so I think they're better off arming themselves, because he doesn't want their lives in Worf's hand. So he has, and one thing about Worf, even though he's a Klingon, he's a good tactful officer. Despite him being called microbrain and all, he was a good tactical officer for a Klingon. And the tactics that he told them to do was pretty good until 3 of those officers gets killed off by the Cybermen, while Worf saves Rory and Amy out of there. While at the same time, some of the Cybermen found them and went like, delete, delete, delete. And even one of the Cybermen took the conduit, and they took them, and they were about ready to turn them into Cybermen, but the Doctor's sonic screwdriver knocked one out. And then the Enterprise itself starts shooting gold dust into their Cyberman ship. They all wore masks except Data. He's an android. He can't breathe. But the Doctor uses a handkerchief to cover his mouth. I don't know how scientifically that would be possible, but although I have heard that the Doctor can hold his breath longer than anybody else. But anyway, they finally went to the Cyberman controller, who is also attached to the Borg. And that's one thing I gotta say about the Cyberman controller. Why on earth does he have a glass that shows his brain? It's like having a character who has a bullseye, pretty much telling us, aim here. But anyway, the Cybermen talk to the Cyberman controller. The Cyberman controller starts attacking them, say, die, Doctor. And then the conduit and Data tackle him down, found the emotion enhancer, and attached it to the conduit. Now the Borg has the information they need in order to stop them, and they quickly got back to their TARDIS and dematerialized while the Cyberman ship was destroyed. But then all of a sudden the conduit starts taking over the TARDIS. So the TARDIS itself opened up and it got into Data. So now the TARDIS used Data as a vessel, and he starts defeating the conduit, while Worf and Rory, on the other hand, had a better idea. Rory opened up the TARDIS door while Worf tackles the conduit, and Worf picked up the conduit while Rory opened the door, and he tossed him out to the time stream. And of course, Riker mourning over Bertrand, aka the conduit. There was nothing he can do. But anyway, the Enterprise and the Doctor says their farewell, and of course, Amy waving to Picard. Picard's going like, and of course, at the end, they left out a cliffhanger, letting us know that it's hinting that now the Borg are mastering time travel, and that was hence First Contact, the best Star Trek movie ever made. Now, these comics are really good, and I mean, the artwork is a little blotchy, but all in all, these comics are really good. You should read these. You should buy these comics yourself. Read the crossover. A little hiccup on some of the things, but still, it's a good story. But you know, that's not the only crossover they've done. Star Trek did a lot of crossovers. They cross over to the DC universe with the Star Trek and Green Lantern, Star Trek and the Legion of Superheroes. And then they did a weird one. I mean, this time they went to the Marvel Universe and did like over 3 Star Trek X-Men. And then they did Star Trek Planet of the Apes. Now, Planet of the Apes was one of the sci-fi franchise I'm not a big fan of. And of course, Doctor Who did their own crossover. Besides The Wizard of Oz, they did Legend of Camelot, Rebellion of Treasure Island, and Return of Robin Hood. Probably picked up where that Peter Capaldi Robin Hood left off. Camelot, on the other hand, wasn't there an episode where the Doctor ended up in Camelot, met Arthur, and became Merlin? I mean, Doctor becoming Merlin? I mean, there was something about that. Leave a comment about it. But there's one crossover I think the Doctor should. I think the Doctor should cross over with Dan Dare, the pilot of the future. And of course, to me, another crossover I think Star Trek should do is Star Trek crossover with Battlestar Galactica. Because I think Star Trek Next Generation should cross over with Battlestar Galactica, like the crossover theory I made years ago. Except that crossover theory was from my old laptop where the sound kept going in and out. So, this is my review for the day. I hope you all had a very good Christmas. I know I did. And since Star Wars own Marvel, I doubt if they ever cross over Star Wars and Guardians of the Galaxy. But now I'm hearing that Disney is also trying to own Doctor Who as well. So if they do a crossover of Guardians of the Galaxy and Doctor Who, I'm all for it. Probably I'll do a crossover theory on that one. Actually, wait a minute. I did do a crossover theory on that one. With Matt Smith's Doctor. Huh. But anyway, this is my review for the day. And for any of you who likes this review, please leave a comment down below, hit like and subscribe. And, well, this will be the end of this year, and the next year is going to be the next season for my series. So, since I talked about Battlestar Galactica so much, I think it's time for me to review Battlestar Galactica. It's going to be a lot for me to talk about, more than this. So, I'm the multi-voice reviewer. I remember so I can jog your memory.